This nugget looks at the labor demand, one of the three pillars of the labor market house. To assess the labor demand, we are looking at the types of companies or enterprises, the employment sectors, and the forecasts. In addition, as in every chapter, the following areas should be addressed: factors, challenges, and opportunities in order to formulate recommendations. It is important to point out that all information should be with regard to the labor market. It is so easy to get lost. There are different types of companies. With regard to their size, the definition actually differs from country to country. Big and large companies. In South Sudan, a large company has more than 50 employees, while a large company in Nigeria must have more than 200. Medium and small enterprises and micro enterprises that are often family-run businesses. They are sometimes called suitcase companies, as all the belongings fit in a suitcase. They are ranked according to the number of employees, sometimes and in addition according to assets and annual turnover. Often the size indicates the capacity of employment generation and economic stability. Due to the high investment, larger companies tend to be more stable to economic changes. The number of large companies is often quite modest. Micro enterprises are often the only alternative when wage employment is not available. They are vulnerable to economic changes, and they are often part of the informal sector that needs particular attention. Medium and small enterprises are usually considered the backbone of an economy, as they are relatively stable and offer employment for a considerable percentage of the population. To develop a better understanding on the demand side, we need to cluster. Clustering is the task of grouping a set of objects so that objects in the same group are more similar to each other than those in the other groups into brackets or clusters. We just clustered companies according to their size. We can also cluster them according to their economic activity they are working in. The International Standard Industrial Classification of All Economic Activities, or ISIC, is a standard classification of economic activities arranged so that entities can be classified according to the activity they carry out. ISIC is a basic tool for studying economic phenomena, fostering international comparability of data, providing guidance for the development of national classifications, and for promoting the development of sound national statistical systems. But what happens if a new sector emerges? According to the Creative Economy by 2030, published in 2022 by ISPI, International Labour Market definitions such as ISIC fail to identify and differentiate between many of the emerging skills that drive the orange sector. At an international level, this adds confusion to trade agreements. At the national level, it means that governments, do not accurately predict skills, needs, and trends in the sector with negative impact on public and private investments. With regard to the economic activities of ISIC, where would the orange sector be located? What is the orange sector? The orange sector has no single definition. It is an evolving concept which builds on the interplay between human creativity, intellectual property, knowledge, and technology. Essentially, it is the knowledge-based economic activities upon which creative industries are based. Fun facts: orange is a pigment used in ancient Egypt to adorn the tombs of the pharaohs, and it was the dominant color for culture, creativity, and identity. Economic activity in the orange sector can be clustered in core creative industries with a number of subsectors, fashion industry, high-end industries with a variety of subsectors. With regard to ISIC, you find most of the core activities in number 18, arts, entertainment, and recreation. But there are 4 other relevant activities: manufacturing, accommodation and food service activities, information and communication, and professional, scientific, and technical activities. This makes it difficult to retrieve reliable data on the orange sector. With regard to labor market assessment, this means that we have to dig deeper. One relevant sector ministry does not exist. In addition, big orange sector companies often do not exist. The market is rather characterized by small, emerging enterprises, startups, and self-employed entrepreneurs. According to OECD, the self-employment rate of people working in the orange sector is on the average twice the rate of the general labor force. In addition, people hold multiple jobs, combining salaried employment and project work. Therefore, we need to consult several sources in order to have a reliable basis. We also have to take into consideration formal businesses, networks, and linkages, which leads us to the next point. Special attention should be given to the informal sector, not only with regard to the orange sector. In fact, especially in developing countries, the informal sector is quite big. But what is the informal sector? Well, it is actually quite simple. The formal sector pays taxes to the Ministry of Finance, including value-added tax. The informal sector does not. But the informal sector usually pays a daily or monthly contribution to the local market administration, includes workers in unincorporated enterprises who produce at least in part for the market and are not registered, exclude households that produce exclusively for their own final use, subsistence farming, own home construction, etc. Often, its economic power and wealth is underestimated. The informal sector is actually the area where most of the employment happens. People are able to earn money in the informal economy to live and thrive. And you can actually see the informal part of an economy in a wide range of formal companies. For some formal companies, the informal economy is even a business plan for a corporation. For example, they sell products only in the informal markets. In a labor market assessment, the informal sector should be analyzed in detail. This is challenging as information is often scattered. Let's listen to what Gladys Sheshie, labor market expert from Ghana, says about the informal sector.
It's an very important sector that cannot be overlooked. This is because it creates job opportunity for our teeming youth. You know, unemployment is a major thing in Africa and in Ghana. We have a lot of our youth who have completed their education, but they are not having job to do. But people go through apprenticeship and they are able to set up their own business and do something for themselves. If you remember the pandemic, we have a lot of retrenchment issues with industries and institutions. People were retrenched. That was where people realized that we need to acquire some kind of skill so that we can generate income for ourselves. The informal sector also helps with the GDP growth of our economy. You know, they pay some form of tax, which really help the economy of our country. Apart from that, it is a sector that focuses on education and training. We know of apprenticeship training. People, the young ones, or people normally attach themselves to a mastercraft persons where they acquire some kind of skills, knowledge over a period of time so that they will be able to do something with that skill. So looking at it, you can see that the informal sector is doing a great job when it comes to apprenticeship work. We have sources of information for the informal sector. We have the Ghana Enterprises Agency, formerly National Board for Small Scale Industry. We also have our ministries, Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Education. We can also get some information from them, the Registrar General Department. We can also get information from the Ghana Statistics Service. We also have the Commission for TVET and the Ghana TVET Service. They are all parts of the institutions that we can access, including even our district, metropolitan, municipal, and district assembly. When you go there, we can get access about it, the informal sector. Not forgetting the trade associations, like the Artisans Association of Ghana, the ASI, that is Association of Small Scale Industries, and all the other trade, because mostly we have a lot of the mastercraft persons, those in the informal sector, in trade associations.
For labor market assessments, the development of economic sectors is crucial to anticipate the future and recommend actions today. Questions are: which sectors are economically important? But attention, we already know that there are some side effects if we only take the GDP as an indicator. Which sectors are labor intensive and offer employment? How do these sectors develop? Are they growing, stable, or dying out? Are there any emerging niche sectors? Furthermore, the respective territorial area needs to be taken into consideration. What may be important for a mega city may not be so significant for a province that is predominantly rural. This has implications on recommendations of specific activities, such as tax incentives, for example. Some say that business forecasts are a bit like the probability of rain in weather forecasts. 30% means that it has rained at some point of the day in 3 out of 10 days that had comparable weather situations like today. But can we always refer to comparable conditions in the past? And is at some point of a given duration enough for political decisions? On the other hand, what alternatives do we have? In the end, a bad prognosis to be discussed. Into brackets, remember, the report is only a tool, not the final goal. Close brackets, is better than no prognosis. There are two types of forecasts: exploratory or normative. The exploratory forecast starts at the present and asks what could happen if this event happened. Different futures are possible that need to be discussed to see in how far they can be influenced today. This is the most often used forecast. The normative method starts from a desirable future and asks what do we have to do now to arrive at that point in the future. Although this idea is very often found in political strategies or development plans, it is rarely implemented consistently. In both methods, demand for future occupation is particularly important for a labor market assessment to start creating a pool of labor supply today that the market needs and can easily absorb. To analyze the demand by occupation, it is essential to start from the sales point of a company. Domestic sales and export sales make up the total sales or the gross output. Based on the total sales points, you divide the employment by occupation and then each occupation by replacement and change in occupation. A change in occupation simply means different terms of reference for the employee. For this purpose, the ISCO classification is usually taken. The international standard for the classification of occupation is a tool for organizing jobs into a clearly defined set of groups according to the tasks and duties undertaken in the job. Its main aims are to provide a basis for the international reporting, comparison, and exchange of statistical and administrative data about occupations, a model for the development of national and regional classifications of occupations, and a system that can be used directly in countries that have not developed their own national classifications. Important for forecasts and the development of the sector is the change in total demand for occupations as well as the change in employment of the occupation. For this part, it is easiest to just fill in a table with the aspects just discussed. For each aspect, you define challenges and opportunities. You then think of recommendations you have to improve the situation and of the actors that should be involved. Once again, this schematic approach helps to focus on the main results. At the end, You have a list of recommendations that you can discuss with stakeholders. Let's do it for the type of companies as example. A challenge could be that the companies are mainly small and micro enterprises, that they are mainly in the informal sector, and that there is little information on the informal sector. The opportunity could be that small and micro enterprises provide employment opportunities for a wide range of sectors. Recommendations could be that a database on the informal sector should be developed. The focal point could be the ministry in charge of also the formal sector. The ministry often has a variety of names that varies from country to country. Additional actors could be the institutions of the people in charge of collecting market administration fees from the vendors. Sometimes it is necessary to differentiate according to territorial areas. For example, to achieve balanced regional development, it may be necessary to allow subnational incentives for the business environment, such as tax exemptions, to encourage business startups in selected small towns. With regard to the orange sector, cultural and creative employment tends to concentrate in large cities, so that different incentive systems might be needed. Therefore, it is important to provide additional information in the column on recommendations. There is a lot of information available to better understand the labor demand side. Let's focus on some selected sources to make you hungry for further reading. If you wish to know more about foresights, we recommend the ELO book on developing skills foresights, a hands-on manual. The website on skills for trade economic diversification, also by ELO, provides additional info and documents. It might be worth to watch some educational videos on the gig economy or on the orange sector. YouTube provides a wide range. We included one example. Also on YouTube, we highly recommend The Power of the Informal Economy that draws the linkages between informal and formal. There is much more information on the ASPI website on specific topics relevant for labor market analysis. Check it out yourself with a search function on www.aspi.org.